Clash is part of the overall Cadmus arc, though we are in the final moments before the endgame begins. Clash starts simply enough, your typical day of a power-absorbing supervillain kicking the asses of two superheroes. One being the stretchy guy, though, so that hardly counts. But anyway, after taking out Metamorpho, Parasite is really juiced up, so they need to bring in some serious guns, and Batman knows it. He's got lots of toys, but this isn't a job that plays to his particular strengths, not something that a Batarang is going to be able to solve. Besides, Parasite absorbs knowledge too, and since Batman has figured out how to defeat the rest of his teammates and how to operate the giant satellite of theirs, probably best to keep that knowledge out of Parasite's hands. Well, Parasite is one of Superman's rogue gallery, so it's only fair that he gets first dibs. But Supes is busy saving a plane that lost one of its wings. Again. Happens so often I think they're welding handles on the planes to make Superman's job a little easier. But with the urgency, someone else arrives first. Captain Marvel. No, not Carol Danvers. This is the one that yells Shazam. They're both called Captain Marvel, but she gets to put it on her books because, of course, she got the name of the divorce. Anyway, Captain Marvel makes short work of Parasite, and Superman doesn't seem to be happy about being upstaged by a new guy. Things take a turn for the worse after the titles, as the press approaches the heroes and Marvel is too green to realize that he probably shouldn't talk to them. The reason for Cadmus is, after all, that the League has a negative public image, and when that happens, you don't want to have press statements from someone who is technically a small boy. There's a fair chance he might not be up on the proper public relations. In this case, he gushes about how great the League is in changing the world, and when pressed for specifics, points out that Luthor has reformed enough to run for president, so that shows how they can stop threats and help people rehabilitate. Assuming you think running for president is a sign you're not a villain. I mean, that is kind of iffy. With the impromptu interview over, he returns to his hometown, transforms back into a kid, Captain Marvel's real identity, and gets berated by his teacher for being late. That's just one more reason not to talk to the press when you don't have a hall pass.
Again.
Yes, ma'am.
Isn't it time you learn to take some responsibility for yourself, Billy?
You look long and hard at these boobs until you've learned your lesson. But Marvel is thrilled beyond words at being in the JLU, being in outer space, high-fiving other heroes. But all too quickly Superman shows up to rain on his parade, dragging him before the council of the original League members so that, when he reads Marvel the Riot Act, there can be an audience for it. The papers treated Captain Marvel's remark like an endorsement, so naturally Superman is annoyed that the newest member of the team has just endorsed the evil scheme of his arch-enemy. Thumbs up for the evil villain isn't what they stand for. At the same time, though, Marvel is of the opinion that people can change, and it's wrong of them not to encourage that, try to give people a fresh start. He has a point. Not only is it preferable to see former criminals become positive, productive members of society, but every one removed means that there is less need for the more drastic measures that the League needs to do in order to fight villainy. Of course, on the other hand, it's Lex Luthor. I mean, come on. This guy's been fighting Superman since even before Superman told us to slap the Japanese. So the likelihood that he's going to solve global warming for us is unlikely. And even if he did, he'd probably insist that it only works if it's placed inside of a statue of Superman wearing a little Bo Peep costume and has to be placed in every city in America. That night, Supes even has to listen to Lex go on with their Bill O'Reilly substitute and talk about how benevolent he is. He's building a city to provide clean and safe housing and resources for poverty-stricken Americans, and then makes mention of how Hawkgirl betrayed the Justice League once and is nevertheless still a member. He uses this as a little 1-2 punch. I deserve a second chance too, and I'm using it to care for poor people. I'm just waiting for him to announce that he's invented cybernetic limbs for cats and dogs so that Fido and Ginger can be playing with their families again. And all Supes can do is just stare angrily at the television. Just look at that look on his face there. You've heard the phrase, if looks could kill. Well, this is a man with heat vision. He might just be planning that. Well, Batman and Superman hash things out over a fight with some supervillains. Always nice when you can have a working meeting instead of having to use your personal time.
What do these guys want, anyway?
To take over the world? Or rob banks? I forget.
Well, at least it's something we're used to. Keeping it old school, we can respect that. Oh, speaking of old school, did you know that there are still 4 phone booths in New York City? I mean, actual old-fashioned phone booths like Superman used to change into. Isn't it funny to think about? 4 of them still around. Well, make that 3, I guess. Well, we really ought to finish this thing up, though, because there was a robbery. Something pretty important was taken. Of course, Soups has only got one thing on his mind right now.
Why is everyone defending him? We like him. He's sunny.
What should be obvious is that Superman isn't just annoyed about the Lex Luthor thing. He's clearly a little bit... Well, words like jealous or threatened are a bit strong, but that idea when it comes to Captain Marvel. I mean, let's face it, when it comes to a fight, Marvel is so like Superman, it's like he's one of those rare limited editions of Superman in a weird palette swap. And like all limited editions, everyone is excited about him. But Soups is no doubt thinking, come on, I've got the experience, I've got the know-how. When I come into a fight, I know how to win it, because I don't turn into a kid when I accidentally blurt out the wrong word. The only way I would ever be a weakling is if someone showed up with kryptonite, and how often does that happen?
Nearly 4 pounds of weapons-grade kryptonite.
Contrary to popular belief, that S doesn't stand for Superman. It stands for sucks to be me.